Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to a PHLY Flyers emergency pod presented by Xfinity. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games. Joining me in the Xfinity mobile studio, it's Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, and we are talking Christian Dvorak. Charlie, you and I started talking about this little while ago, leading up to the new year. Guys on 1-year UFA deals became eligible to sign extensions on January 1st, and here on January 5th, it appears as if Christian Dvorak's staying a while. 5 years, $25.75 million total contract extension that breaks down to $5.15 million cap hit per season, Chuck. There are some trade protections in there as well, which is like maybe the most annoying thing.
Yeah, and I could talk about what I've heard about those, because I actually think there's a decent chance those aren't maybe as bad as they might seem.
Okay.
That said, there's still quite a lot about this deal that that makes me skeptical that it is the right move for the Flyers, but they're doing it. It's a 5-year deal worth $25.75 million total, $5.15 million cap hit. So Christian Dvorak will be a Flyer, most likely at least for the next few years, if not the rest of the season, and another 5.
And then another 5 after that. So the Charlie, maybe this is maybe it's not completely correct, but what I have from Kurz after the total and the term, it's Dvorak contract extension includes a no trade for the first 2 years, limited no trade in years 3 and 4, and then year 5 there are no protections. Is that what you've heard as well?
What I heard from a team source is that, well, I believe that is, like, I don't think none of that is wrong. What I've heard is that the trade protection is mostly gone by year 4. That the final 2 years of the deal, there really isn't much that they feel like would limit them in terms of trading him. So wouldn't be shocked if it's like full NTC the first 2 years, maybe like, maybe something like a 20-team modified no trade in year 3, and maybe it drops down a bit in year 4, and then it's non-existent in year 5. So, from their perspective, it's kind of like a backdoor 3-year deal. At least maybe that's what they're thinking in their heads. But that was what I had heard, was that that the final 2 years, if necessary, if that's the way it plays out, it wouldn't be that difficult to trade him. However, that's easy to say now. We don't know what Christian Dvorak is going to be in 3 years when that trade protection opens up. It's possible that his cap hit will serve as trade protection enough, as it has with other players in the NHL. But again, that goes into the potential downsides of the deal, which we'll get into in a few minutes.
Yeah, all right. So those are the details as we know them thus far. Of course, Christian Dvorak signed with Philly on July 1st. It was 1 year, $5.4 million. His previous contract was 6 years at $4.45 a year. So he's basically been playing at around the same price for his entire career since his ELC. He'll be 30 on February 2nd. This year, he's on pace for 52 points, 9 goals, 16 assists for 25 points in 39 games. He's 54% in the faceoff circle, career 53.1, career highs of 18 goals, 22 assists, 38 points in a couple of different seasons there. So these are the facts as we know them, Charlie.
And they are not a dispute.
Yes. Now, as we move into the to our opinions of what this deal means, there are a few things we got to work through here. I know there's a little sticker shock out there at the over $5 million a year, but that part doesn't bother me. I figured it was going to be around 5. Maybe they could get him at like 4.8 or something, but I figured 5 is probably about right considering his level of production. And like, he's a center. Let's face it. Everyone in the league needs centers. There's going to be a center tax. He's a pretty good one. So there you go. A little over 5. That's not nuts.
Yeah, and it's actually a decrease. Like, he got, I would say he gave them a discount, but it's less than the cap hit he's on this year. So it's,
which I think makes sense for the term.
It makes sense. Yeah. It makes sense, but also, like, hey, you're trying to re-sign a guy. I could have easily seen Dvorak's team being like, hey, you got to give him a little bit of a raise.
Yeah. The 5 years is where we run into our first, like, oh, okay. I've said all along, you've kind of been like, maybe just let him walk, you know? There's always the possibility you can trade his rights at the draft or something like that, get a little something back, but they have decided to keep him, and I've said all along, like, if it's 3 years, not the biggest deal. I don't know if he's imminently blocking anyone. Yes, I'd like to see Zegras at center, but maybe you can just flip the two at some point or something like that. Luchanko, AHL, bottom six role, whatever. Nesbitt, not really worried about him in the near future. Berglund, not really worried about him in the near future. But here we are, 5 years. That's too many. I'm going to be honest with you. I know you broke down the trade that maybe this is just a backdoor 3-year deal, and they could get out of it with trades if he's not, doesn't have trade protections, if he's still relatively productive. But 3, 4, 5 years from now, that's a long time. Anything could happen to this guy. 5 is just too many. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think before I get into what I don't like about the deal, I want to make it clear that this isn't me ripping on Christian Dvorak, the player. I think he's a perfectly good player. I think he's fit quite well with this team, both in the locker room. I mean, he's really, really well liked in that room. He came in with the pre-existing friendship with Trevor Zegras, but he's very quickly earned, a lot of friends in that room. He's popular. So he fits in the room, and he's a good player. And I actually think that, like, one thing I noticed when I was doing analysis of the initial contract, the 1-year deal he signed in the summer, was that his best years from an underlying metric standpoint came under Rick Tocchet. And that was one of my hopes as to why I thought Dvorak had a chance to exceed expectations. It was like, maybe he fits quite well with this coach. And it's clear the Flyers aren't going to be moving on from Rick Tocchet anytime soon based on the trust they have in him and the contract they signed him to this offseason when they hired him. So I was like, hey, there could be a good fit here. So I do think that the bulk of his numbers, he's probably getting a bit of a boost because he's been joined and hit Trevor Zegras, and Zegras is really, really talented. I think the bulk of his numbers are going to hold. Like, I think he's going to remain, at least for the next few years, a decent enough 5-on-5 player in terms of, underlying results, in terms of play driving. And in those 2 years with Rick Tocchet, he averaged about, in terms of 82 game point base, about 45 points a year. I think that's reasonable to expect. That is a good player. That's a guy who, like, if he's your second line center, he's probably a below average second line center, but he's passable. And if he's your third line center, he's a great third line center. So that is a quality middle six center. That is a quality player. My concern here from the Flyers' perspective is I look at this deal and I don't know where I see a lot of potential downsides, like a lot of ways this deal could not work out for them. And then I don't see much upside. Like, this strikes me as, a low ceiling deal in terms of, like, I don't see a world where in 3 years, and this isn't a major critique of Dvorak. It's just that he's 29 going on 30. Like, this is probably who he is. And he's been rejoined to the coach he's been the best with. So, like, I don't know what more you can get out of him. Like, it's hard for me to envision a world where 3 years down the road, we're like, man, that $5.15 million cap, like, that's a steal. Like, man, Christian Dvorak, 70-point player. I don't think he has that in him. So it's not like you're like compare this to, the Cam York deal or even the Noah Cates deal that they signed this summer, where you're like, yeah, there's the potential where we could be looking back and saying, like, wow, they really got a steal. That's a robbery. That's a great value deal for the Flyers. I don't see a world where this is ever going to look like a great value deal. But on the flip side, there are a lot of ways this deal could really be not good for the Flyers. Doesn't mean it will be. It just means there's risk involved. Like, number one, right now, Dvorak, I believe, is on pace for like a little over 50 points. That would be his best. 52-ish. Yeah, 53, something like that. It would be a career high. This could be a career year. And maybe next year, when first year of the deal kicks in, maybe he regresses, and maybe, Zegras finds a new line mate, and then suddenly Dvorak is in on his line, and then Dvorak's just pacing for 40 points. And then you're like, okay, well, so you paid him on a year when he was playing his best, and now he's not that anymore. That's like risk number one. Maybe this is a career year and you're paying him based on a career year. Number two, the risk of aging. He turns 30 in February. If you sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, like, okay, I'll bet on him staying close to what he is now through age 32, even 33, 34, 35. I mean, I hate to bring it up, but like, we're seeing what happens to some guys at age 34 and 35 in Garnet Hathaway this year. Garnet Hathaway this time last year was an above-average fourth liner that everybody loves seeing on the ice. This year, he has 0 points in 30-plus games. Like, the floor can fall out from under a guy quick, and now you've locked Dvorak up to a term that lasts through the part of a player's career where the floor can fall out from under you quick. So that's another risk, potential risk, potential downside. Then you have the lineup aspect of it. Number one, we know Rick Tocchet loves Christian Dvorak. There is the chance that Dvorak's presence in the lineup, as the Flyers keep adding more and more young guys, that Dvorak gets maybe more minutes than he probably should get over guys who are performing better in many ways because Tocchet trusts him and he doesn't trust the kids. That's a risk. And the longer the deal goes, the longer, this year, I don't think, aside from the most play the kids die hard, I don't think there are many people that think Christian Dvorak's minutes are out of line with what he's providing. But in 2 years, maybe they will be. In 4 years, there's probably a better chance they could be, especially if Tocchet's still the coach and he still loves Dvorak. So the idea that the coach could overplay him, that's a downside risk. Then there's the possibility that I could talk about how they think they'll be able to trade him in year 4 or year 5 if it comes down to it. But if he falls off a cliff from an aging standpoint, then maybe you can't trade him because then nobody wants to take on a $5 million cap hit from a guy who's on pace for 20 points. The cap ceiling's going up. It might not be going up that much. And then the final thing, which I think is the thing that people are locked in on now, just because you look at the future roster and you're like, ugh. We know that a team with the centers, Sean Couturier, Noah Cates, and Christian Dvorak, that team is probably not winning a cup. You probably still need at least one more guy.
I think you can take probably out of there, Charlie.
Yeah, it's not cup caliber centers. It's just not. And this isn't a slight against any of those guys. The Sean Couturier in 2018, that guy, yeah, he could have been a 1C on a cup contender. Unfortunately, he's not that guy anymore. No. So it scares you where it's does this mean that the Flyers are going to be okay with just these 3 centers for the next 4 or 5 years? It doesn't necessarily mean they are, but they could be. And if that's the case, then I don't think this team is winning much. So there's a lot of downside risk here. The upside is he stays good and it's a perfectly fine deal. And hopefully that's how it plays out. He stays good. It's a perfectly fine deal, or they're able to trade him when young guys take his job. And you got a good placeholder, a good player who works well with the team, who is popular in the room, who the coach trusts, and you have him for a few years. And then when, one of Nesbitt or Berglund or whatever center you trade for pops up, then you can move him out in a deal to get assets for him. And then boom, everything's great. Yeah, that could work out. That could be how it plays out. It could be great. But it's not an amazing scenario. That's just a fine scenario. That's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways this could be bad. There's a lot of ways this could turn out bad.
That's the only way this works out. And it takes me all the way back to the conversation we had when this initially started. I know they didn't want to, and that's totally obvious now. They're not only keeping him for this year, 5 more after this. The deal starts the year he turns 31. My issue here goes all the way back to the initial, hey, you know how everyone needs centers? You know what? It's good because the Flyers need centers. They're one of those teams. And that's why they went and signed him. That's cool. The guy's having a career year. He's always been good under Tocchet. This is almost really good asset management. But they need players better than Christian Dvorak. And a great way to get them is by accumulating assets so you can trade for them. Nobody hits free agency. That's part of this. What are we going to get? What center are we going to get this summer? We're not. So we need to keep this one. But right now, this guy's value has never been higher, maybe in his entire freaking career, Charlie. This team needs assets so that they can go get better players. Trade him to get those assets. They have elected not to do that. That's my first annoyance, but I kind of resigned myself to that a couple of weeks ago when we first had this conversation. My second is talking about the production fall off. He right now is tied at the hip to a point per game player. He is not a point per game player. He's producing well, but he's nowhere near Trevor Zegras' level of production. If and when they go and get a center better than Christian Dvorak to play with Trevor Zegras, what happens to his production? What happens when he's just a 3C, as is the role he's probably best suited for? Right now, he's our 1C because there is no 1C. I get it. Okay, that's fine. I'm just looking at like his career high production. Coots is on pace for 48 points. That's 10 more than Dvorak is on pace for right now, or is that 10 more than Devo's career high? Like, even if him at his best, it's like, yeah, Couturier, who we're all really down on, he's going to produce basically the same amount of offense. It also, and you brought this up, are we just killing the idea of Zegras at center? Is that over? Like, is Zegras at center dead now? If they are just going to tie these two together and say, well, we might have maybe not the best 2C, but we get the best version of winger Zegras because of it, they're willing to make that trade-off. Does that mean, one, either Zegras' minutes get limited, or we're just done with him at center? He's tied to a guy who isn't dynamic. Like, I just don't like the roster construction of this beyond this year. That's a real issue for me.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think they have worked quite well together. And I think that they can be trusted to continue to work quite well together, at least through the end of this year. And probably next year too. And probably the year after that. I just worry about what happens when Zegras gets older. Or not Zegras, when Dvorak gets older. Like, as I said, we're seeing with Garnet Hathaway, it can happen quick. And again, this just comes down to my view of like, it's not destined to be a disaster. But there are just a lot of ways it could be bad in the end. And I feel like there's a lot more plausible, like if you're talking about like alternate realities and like, branching timelines and whatnot, there's a lot more timelines in my view where this contract doesn't work out for the Flyers than there are where it does. And there's very few where the branching timeline is like, man, that's an awesome deal for the Flyers. And to me, like, I'll take on some downside risk in a deal if I think there's upside play. If it's like, well, yeah, it could really be poor, but like, man, if we hit, like, it could be awesome. I don't know if I see a world where this is awesome. I see worlds where it's fine. No. I see worlds where you're like, yeah, they got 3 great years out of Dvorak of him being a perfectly fine middle six quality center who scores 50 points a year. And then they traded him for a first round pick. Like that's a good outcome. I don't think that's a franchise changing outcome. It's a good outcome. And I hope that's the way it plays out for the Flyers. Or Dvorak ages extremely well and continues to be a 50, 55 point a year guy all the way until he's 35. And then the Flyers wave goodbye to him as he rides off into the sunset. That would be great. Is it possible? Yeah, it could happen. To me, it's not one of the most likely scenarios, but it could happen. To me, the more likely scenarios are the ones I mentioned where it's like the downside risk of like, well, once he's away from Zegras, he's a 35-point guy. Or once he hits 33, then he's a 30-point guy. Or, he's playing the fourth line and we can't trade him. So you have to retain half of his salary, and then you've got $2.5 million on your books for the final 2 years of the deal. Like, to me, there's just a lot of ways this might not work, and there are significantly fewer ways where it would. And that's why I'm like, on the deal. Not because I dislike Dvorak as a player, just because I'm just not sure I see the risk reward. I think the risk outweighs the reward in my mind.
Listen, I've liked a lot of what Danny has done. I don't like this. I'm going to be honest. I don't think this is a good idea. One thing that could make a little bit more sense for me, Chuck. They have to move on from Sean Couturier. They have to figure. You can't just say, well, we'll figure something out when the time is right. Like, you can't. These can't be your centers. And right now, like, that's the plan. That's a bad plan. You have to figure out a way. And the buyout, like, all right, now we have this money put in to Dvorak. The buyout, you don't really save a ton, but it does open up a roster spot. But what does that really mean? Like, all right, well, we still have 13 million bucks wrapped up in these two centers who are like either not contributing for us or giving us bottom 6 minutes or bottom 6 production. If they were to figure out a way to trade Sean Couturier and not have to cover 50% or more of his contract, or 2/3 of it, like they would with the buyout, I just that makes it make a little bit more sense for me. Do you get the feeling that's a possibility?
I mean, I don't, but I know that everyone loves to talk about that because it's like the solution to everyone's problems, like get the big cap hit out of there. Like, to me, it's just as likely. Like, you're saying, well, they could trade Couturier. Well, Couturier has a no movement clause. Okay. So, like, for them to trade him, he would have to agree to it. He's the captain of the team. To me, it's just as likely that in a year or two, they go to Dvorak and ask him to waive his no trade
or
clause.
Dvorak.
You know,
I think 2 years from now, if it's 2027, 28, and those two are still two of our top 3 centers, like, stuff's going really, really wrong.
yeah, I guess they look at it as they don't think any other centers are ready. And I guess this speaks to their view of Luchanko, that, like, at the very least,
That's my next question.
That even if Luchanko, this tells me that if their view of Luchanko is even if he's ready for the NHL next year, which, like, maybe he won't be, maybe he will be, but even if he is, they are not going to be looking to thrust him into a top 6 role. They're going to let him slowly develop into maybe getting to that point. And maybe they don't have as much confidence as they did 2 years ago that he'll ever get to that point. So it's like, let's get the centers. And then if one of the centers, you know, whether it's Luchanko, whether it's Berglund or Nesbitt gets here earlier than expected, whether you can trade for somebody, if one of those deals emerges, then you figure out what to do from there. It seems like that is a lot of this deal, a lot of the thought process behind this deal of, like, rather than leave spots open for what might happen, let's just make sure there aren't any clear holes. And then if it turns out that we can make a better move for a center, or if one of our prospects gets here sooner or develops quicker than we think he's going to, then we'll figure it out. Like, we'll fit whether that's talking to Sean Couturier and asking him to waive his no move, whether that's talking to Christian Dvorak and asking him to waive his no trade, whether that's moving Noah Cates over to the wing. Like, they're basically looking at it as, like, we'd rather have too many centers than too few. And when we have, if we run into a glut problem, then we'll just figure out a way because everyone always wants centers. Like, I think that's probably what they're thinking.
And maybe, I don't know if I love some of the logic there, but okay. My next question, though, is like, are you expecting Jett Luchanko in 2026-27 to be a Philadelphia Flyer?
Yes. Yeah, I expect him to play in 2026-2027. Now, will he make the team out of camp? I don't know. I mean, he did the last 2 years, but that was a weird situation because it was well, he can't go to the AHL. It's either juniors or the pros. I guess we're going to put him in the NHL for a little bit and see what happens. Yeah, I think he plays NHL games next year. This does make me wonder if those NHL games, like, it's more of a, yeah, you're going to spend 3 months in the minors and then you're going to get a call up like Barkey did. And then if you do well, you stay. And if you don't, you go back down. It might be that. Maybe that's where their heads are at. But it's abundantly clear that, look, let me put it this way. If they thought this guy was going to make the team out of camp and immediately be a top 9 center and be, you know, at least like a 35, 40-point guy, I don't think they're that worried about locking up Christian Dvorak. But by doing what you did tonight, you're basically saying, like, yeah, you know, look, we like Luchanko. And I don't think, like, some people are going to take this to be like, well, he's stunk in World Juniors, so they've given up on Luchanko. Like, I don't think it's that. But I do think it's that, like, they haven't seen enough from him to tell them, like, we need to save a spot for this guy, at least for the next couple of years. He'll be ready when he's ready. Not like he'll be ready now.
So much of the conversation when they extended Travis Konecny, and that's different because, like, he's still a prime age player at that point. He's been here. You're giving him, you know, the long-term contract at age, 27 it started, 28, not, you know, the month before. Really, it kicks in after he's like 30 and a half for Dvorak. It's different, but so much of the conversation around the Konecny extension was, well, we are going to be looking for a Travis Konecny in 2 or 3 years, and they're hard to find. We have one now. Let's keep him. How much do you think is looking at the center landscape and going, you know what we're going to need in 2 years is this guy? So, like, let's just do it. I get maybe that's some of the logic there. You get that?
I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the centers that were supposed to be available are no longer going to be available, and not even just at the top. Like, Alex Wenberg just got signed to a 3-year deal like 2 days ago, and he is basically what Dvorak is. He's a, you know, middle 6 center, probably more of a 3C than Dvorak is at this point. He's basically just like I eat the tough minutes and don't score that much. That's my role. So, yeah, there isn't a lot available. And I do think some of this is driven by a fear on the Flyers front office perspective of, like, oh God, what if we're left not having a center? What if in a year or in 2 years, when we're trying to maybe not win a cup, we're trying to make the playoffs, we're trying to be competitive, and then we only have 2 centers? What if that happens? this gives them the ability to be like, well, we got Dvorak, and he's a fine NHL center. And if we absolutely have to, we can move him over to the wing. If it turns out that we're able to swing a deal for an impact center like a Robert Thomas, or if one of our prospect centers dramatically exceeds expectations, we'll figure it out. And we're still perfectly happy with him being on the team. Yeah, I do think that's a big part of it. Sure.
I'm just looking at this, Chuck, and I'm trying to figure out the probability that this is all just okay, and it feels low. Like, I mean, I guess okay is the best. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, like that's kind of what we're hoping for.
I think we're realistically hoping for okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
Like that's the ceiling of this deal. Like as much as the cap is going up, and that's something we're gonna say every single time we have a story like this for every team, every guy. Like, oh, okay, cap's going up. Like no one's gonna want to pay over $5 million for a player who stinks. If that's the case, when his trade protections are up in 3 or 4 years,
and he doesn't stink now. Like I want to make that clear. Like this is not a Christian Dvorak stinks emergency pod. He doesn't stink. He's a good player now. I just worry whether he will still be a good player in 3-4 years.
I have liked a lot of what I've seen from Dvorak. I guess my biggest concern is like he's like a 35-ish point guy for his career when he's not playing with Trevor Zegras. His career high is 38. What happens when you take Zegras away? Like, we need to get someone better than Dvorak to play with Trevor Zegras. Like, as much as we like this duo, that's a crazy idea to be like, yeah, we're going to be contending for a cup, and Trevor Zegras is going to be paired with 33-year-old Christian Dvorak.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I do want to make the point, though, because I am very much a proponent of looking at 82-game pace metrics. Like, you're right in the like Sean Couturier never had over 40 points ever until he had 75, but like in his 2019, 2020, he had 38 points in 70 games. If you're looking at that over 82 games, that's over 40 points. Following year, he had 33 points in 56 games. That's also an over 40 point pace. So I don't think it's quite fair to be like, well, he's a 35 point guy. Like he's on pace for more than that this year. He was on pace for more than that his previous 2 years under Rick Tocchet. So I think you're selling him a bit short there in terms of like what his true talent level is right now, especially under this particular coach. But I do agree with the gist of what you're saying in terms of like no one is selling Christian Dvorak as like a top of the lineup guy on a Stanley Cup team.
No, and that's the like, all right. You know, things that happened 5 years ago, Charlie. Like, that's what we're also looking like. Oh, well, the aging curve. Like, that stuff happened the length of this contract ago.
Yeah, it's true. But also, this
points last
but
year.
As I said, also, this was the last time he played under Rick Tocchet, and I feel like that's just as applicable as the 2 years he played in Montreal when he was injured for a lot of it and just didn't seem to fit.
That's also an issue. This guy's now about to be 30, and we're looking at all these samples. Like, not a whole lot of 82s in there. But to be fair, there is COVID. You do have to account for those. Like, he wasn't hurt in 1920. Like, that's just how many games there were.
Yeah. But that is a fair point, though. You're looking at the last couple of years. I mean, yeah, he played 82. He played 82 in 2024, 2025.
Yeah, last
year. But he played 30 the year before, 64 the year before, and 56 the year before that. That's 3 straight years of missing extended time. Yeah, that's another potential downside. I didn't even list that in the potential downsides. And again, like, I'm not rooting for any of this. I hope he stays healthy. I hope that he wasn't like this isn't just a career year and this is actually a new normal. I hope that he doesn't have the aging curve hit him hard. I hope all these things don't play out. They just strike me as legitimate possibilities. And there are a lot of legitimate possibilities where this deal doesn't work out for the Flyers. Enough of them that I would have hesitated to do this deal.
How much do you think so I just saw a tweet. Now I'm trying to find it again. How much do you think the Venberg deal influenced this? Yeah, per source, the 3x6 that he got put the Sharks from the Sharks back the Flyers into a corner. This is Anthony DeMarco. Like when I see something like that, I just think like, but did it? Like you had to because someone else did. That kind of logic always bothers me.
Well, it certainly helped Dvorak's negotiating stance.
Yeah,
like it helped his leverage. Like it's tough because I'm not in the room, but you do wonder like if Wenberg gets 3 times 5. Are the Flyers maybe able to keep it to 4 years while keeping the cap at something palatable? Like for me personally, and this is just a me thing, like because of where I see the Flyers at, I would have rather given him $1 million a year more to keep it at 3. Like I wouldn't have loved it if he would have gotten a 3-year deal at $6.25 million a year, but I probably would have liked it more than this deal because I could have been like, okay, you're overpaying him a bit, but it's a positional thing and it's still only a 3-year deal. Now, maybe the Flyers ultimately get justified because after year 3, they're able to trade him and then it all works out. And that is, again,
it could work.
A way where this deal works out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways where that's not an attractive idea for any team in hockey if Dvorak's already showing massive signs of aging at age 33. And that's also a plausible way this could work out.
But we must, again, to bring this all around, only to be fair, these are hypotheticals.
Sure, it's all hypothetical.
Right now, he's playing really good hockey.
Yeah.
We just went through the standings and everything today. Record goal differential. Flyers are one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I know it's kind of crazy to say because you watch them and you're like, yeah, some nights. But that's kind of just the NHL outside of 4 teams right now, especially in the East. And he's playing basically 1C minutes for that team. It's going well now. It's just when you see a 5-year deal, you do have to look down the line a bit. And there's also the situation the Flyers are in. They're not actually contending for the first half of this contract. When the cap hit and everything actually matters, that's when a lot of the potential downside kicks in. And I think that's where some of our negativity comes from. But I do think it's important to point out, he doesn't suck now. He's good.
Oh, he's a perfectly good player right now who is fit really well on this team. I think, to me, and I think I put this on Blue Sky when the when the initial report started coming out, is to me, if the only way a contract is good is if you're already talking about how you're going to trade it, then it's probably not that good of a contract idea.
No, there's ways out of it.
When you sign a guy to a deal, you shouldn't be well, it's good if we're able to move him in year 4. No, when you sign a guy to a deal, you should be excited you have him. That's when you know it's a really good deal. And if that's part of the discourse, then it's maybe we should have, maybe reconsider this before giving it. But at this point, look, the deal's been signed. He's a good player. Yeah. He's a good player now. Now you're just hoping that, it's one of those, upside branches where it works out and he stays good until he's in his mid-30s. The cap keeps swinging up and all of the lower to mid players are making $7 million in 4 years or $6 million or whatever, or they find a way to trade him in year 4 and he's still good. And that's how you clear out the spot for Jack Nesbitt to become the team's new 1C. There are ways this can work out. It just scares me because there's a lot of ways I see that it could not work out.
You know what, Charlie? The Flyers are due for some luck. I'm pretty sure they haven't got lucky since draft lottery day 2017, and the good luck immediately turned into bad luck. So maybe they're just due for some good luck. Do we have anything else we want to get to? I think we have at least one super chat.
Yeah, let's do the super chat. Why not?
All right, let's see the first super chat, and I have my screen real small, so I have to blow it up to read it. There we go. It won't. This is from Wooderfuzz 5259. It won't break the cap or be untradeable, but Briere saw a vet having a career year and signed him to a 5-year deal a month before he turns 30. Troubling. Yeah, the circumstances aren't good. Just the way you laid it out there is exactly, I think, what the gist of the show was. Yeah, all right. I mean, is this just the smartest allocation of resources? Is this the way you want to do it? And for the first time, I'm really because you and I were both on kind of they should probably trade TK, but they're not gonna. And there's worse things than having, this guy who's really good.
Yeah.
I still didn't I didn't hate that. This is the first time I'm man, I just don't. This is a bad allocation of resources to me. For Danny Briere, maybe for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of where I'm at with this is For the next year or two, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of cross your fingers and hope that the next couple years after that will stay probably fine. And it's not like, he's blocking anybody, and it's not like he drops off dramatically and he just stays fine. And then you have options, because that's the thing. Like if in year 3 of the deal, he's still this version of Christian Dvorak, then you have options. You could keep him because it's like, well, we're fine with keeping him.
Pretty good,
or you could move him for real value. And if that's the way it works out, then the deal worked out.
All right, we have one more here. It is from Blessed Martian. Flyers fans, get a center. Flyers fans, Flyers sign center. Flyers fans, you idiots. Yeah, I mean, like, it's still
I don't think
where does the center come? Like, where does the guy they need come from?
And I think the big thing here is, like, Flyers fans never, and I say this as a collective whole, I don't want to speak for every single Flyers fan. I don't think there were any Flyers fans who were like jumping for joy they signed Christian Dvorak this summer. Like, he was never a guy where it's like, when we say get a center, we didn't mean Christian Dvorak.
But he has been a pleasant surprise.
And he has been a pleasant surprise. But my point is that like, when they say get a center, they don't mean get a middle six center, because they already have a bunch of those. It's get a guy who can be like a true point per game impact guy, that kind of stuff. Now, those guys are really hard to get. That would probably be Danny Briere's response. Is like, well, sorry, we try. No one gives them up. Fair. But fans are allowed to be like, okay, well, if you don't ever get one of those guys, then we're never going to win anything meaningful. So, like, what's the point of all this?
Yeah. Exactly, Chuck. Exactly. Yes, they need all centers. They needed like 4 of them, at least like 3 coming into the season. It's just they need they need more dynamic talent. And I like Christian Dvorak a lot. Keeping him around does not address the dynamic talent issue, especially at positions of need.
The one thing I do want to point out, and this is something that at least the fans that are rooting for the Flyers to make the playoffs this year, which I think the vast majority of fans are, they want to see playoff hockey return. This is a move that, and Kevin Kerr has pointed this out on Twitter, I largely agree with him. This is a move that I do think will be received very well in the room. The players will be excited about this. The players will be thinking like, oh, the days of us just trading Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost and Sean Walker especially, those days are done. The front office is behind us. And hopefully they can use this good news, which will absolutely be received as good news in the room for them. Because, look, it's not a player's job to think 3, 4, 5 years down the line. It's a player's job to think about winning games right now. And for the players, I hope this serves as a boost for them to make them feel better about the team as it stands now, and maybe can give them that little kick that pushes them to stay in the playoff race and hopefully make the playoffs, because making the playoffs would be fun.
I guess that's the thing I want to close with then, Charlie. The Sean Walker trade was deflating to that room.
It was 100%.
You have said to me, like, I don't know if Danny thinks he can do that to them again. And so that's kind of how we got into the conversation of, well, if they let him walk at the end of the year for nothing, they let him walk for nothing. And if they make the playoffs, dope. If it works, that's great. And you just go, we lost the guy. We didn't trade him, but it's not like we traded anything to get him. We signed him as a free agent.
It was a 1-year deal, whatever.
Not like he gave stuff away to get him. This hopefully is the opposite. Like Danny went last time. Too bad. Yeah, it's deflating. I know. I was a player. Had to do it.
I get it, but
hopefully has the opposite effect. That's at least for this season. That's if you're looking forward to how this year could end. Hopefully it ends in playoffs like that. So I guess we'll go out on that note, Charlie. That's it, right? We don't have anything else.
No, I think that's it.
All right, that's all the time we have for you on the PHLY Flyers Emergency Pod, brought to you by Xfinity. Make sure you check out our show from today. Make sure you're checking out all of our stuff. Subscribe right here to the YouTube page. Follow the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. All that stuff. Thank you all. My name is Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Thank you to Brenna. Be excellent to each other.
We all silly like the mayor.